All right, ladies and gentlemen, enough about the outtakes because it's been that kind of day here on Sportswire Radio, but we are live in prime time on the brightest lights, the biggest stage, and we're doing something a little different. I know usually somebody's waiting for somebody to come on here or a wrestler or whatever it might be, but tonight is a celebration. It's a celebration for a show that has been on Sportswire Radio for more than 4 years, 4.5 years, as a matter of fact, but also to celebrate a man that meant so much to these two individuals, a man that meant so much to this platform, the wrestling community, all wrestling matters movement. And I'm talking about the late, great Jared Justice. Now, usually I do a long-winded intro and hype everybody up, but really tonight is a special occasion. And I obviously want to introduce or reintroduce to some people the Squared Circle radio show, which you've been hearing via the Listen Live button on sportswireradio.org for the better part of 4.5 years. They also have a YouTube channel. They talk about all things related here in AEW, WWE, although Chris Belcher, he ain't no much of an AEW guy, but the Young Buck, Andy York, certainly covers that. And we're not going to talk about the Titans. We're not going to talk about KU. We're certainly not going to talk about those Titans right now. We know Chris does that for a living. But obviously, guys, we're here to celebrate you, but also to celebrate a man that meant so much to us in the late, great Jared Justice. I'm going to turn it over to you first, Chris Belcher. Obviously, we know your relationship with the late, great Jared Justice and also this show. And before, it was the Pipe Bomb Wrestling podcast. But it is so good to see you two back on here for the first time in nearly a year. And tonight is a celebration.
Tom, we, number one, couldn't have done any of what we're doing without you. And we appreciate everything that you have done for the Pipe Bomb Wrestling podcast, for Squared Circle Radio, and just the whole 9 yards. And I know that as we get into tonight, I don't know what you have planned. I don't care. I think we're going to have a whole lot of fun, just shooting the breeze. And as Jared would say, bringing that big Tom energy to the show.
Well, I got to tell you, you know what? My day has been dealing with a lot of that. First of all, I do a news show. And my co-host couldn't freaking put his mic on through his phone for 2.5 hours. That was one thing. And then setting up here, it took me about 7 or 8 different attempts, and it's been that day. So it was fun. I was supposed to actually have a segment before you guys came on, and I was so glad that my guest rescheduled to Saturday because you have no idea. My head was going to explode. I have a soccer coach that's supposed to come on here from Long Island tomorrow, and basically, to quote the quote Roberto Duran, no mas. We're not doing that tomorrow, but nevertheless, yeah, no mas. But he'll have to wait, Coach. We'll bring him back on another time. But really, yeah, there's no question that Jared Justice meant a lot. I'm going to talk about him. I'll talk about the podcast, but I really haven't covered a lot of WWE over the past 7 months because my excuse is, well, I've had WWE wrestlers on Sportswire, so I really don't cover people that actually are on my platform. So it's really hard for me to give kind of a biased opinion because I've had on, well, a who's who of WWE wrestlers. But I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and I'll let you guys talk about, because I know I got a chance to hear it a little bit about it. We're going to play it tomorrow afternoon on Sportswire Radio via the Listen Live button. But so now that we've had a few days to digest, what did you both think about John Cena and his final match?
I personally loved his final match. I thought the finish of it was basically, if you didn't see that it was coming, that he was going to tap out or give up, then I don't really think you have been paying attention to who Cena is and kind of the traditionalist that he is. And so I think that played a massive part into it. We said it on the show, and you mentioned it'll be played tomorrow. It's the first time in a long time WWE actually has a true hated heel in the business in Gunther. Like, people despise him, and what he did on Monday added even more to that. So I really, really enjoyed what they have done. The final match I thought was as good as it was going to get. And it was the right decision. It was the right choice, and it was the right guy to have Gunther go over.
Yeah, I completely agree, Andy. And not only does wrestling, the WWE in particular, now have a true heel. Everybody if you read the online wrestling community, everybody is dumping on Triple H. They're not dumping on Triple H. That's not actually what they're doing, because Tom, I think what WWE did was elicit the reaction that you're supposed to have with
Mm,
wrestling. You're
mm.
supposed to hate the bad guys. As Sam Roberts says, boo the bad guys. And guess what, Tom? We're
Wow.
booing the biggest bad guy in the WWE right now, and that is Gunther, because he choked out. He made our hero tap out, and now WWE just has to capitalize on it. So it's all about what they're going to do next with Gunther, and whether you believe it's Brock Lesnar coming up next, or whether it's AJ Styles coming up next, or what have you. The whole John Cena thing, his whole mantra was to leave the business better than he found it. And Tom, we're talking about Gunther. We're talking about everything that happened, and it's traditional wrestling brought back in a new kind of way, but the reaction is the same. And WWE got what they wanted in that reaction, I think.
Now, what do you think about that? That's a good segue. And I heard you talk about that last week on the show. And by the way, if you're out there, I put up the YouTube page of the Squared Circle radio show. So if you can, hit the sub button for the guys. They're inching ever so closely to those big numbers, 400 subs, 500 subs. Like I told you when we spoke a couple weeks ago on the phone, I said, eventually you'll get there. I know it takes time, but trust me, you'll get there. You'll get there. You'll one day surpass me, and you guys can take over for me. But nevertheless, what do you think about that? That, everybody talked about The Undertaker, right? He was the guy that had the streak, but now Gunther can maybe be the guy that goes out there and retires people, right? Goldberg, Cena, and then you mentioned two other names, and AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar. Is that what WWE is building itself up for, Gunther to be the man that just retires all the legends, the new legend killer?
I was just getting ready to say that, Andy. We didn't even talk about that on the show yesterday or day before yesterday. My days are all, all crazy. But what's going to happen, Andy, if he retires those next two guys, and he's going to come out, Andy, and he's going to say, well, I'm the new legend killer. Well, boom, there comes another one. Randy Orton's coming out, and maybe Gunther sends him out to pasture too.
Yeah, I mean, and Rey Mysterio is right around the corner too. So there's a long list of fan favorite wrestlers who are about to call it quits, and if they want to continue to build on the legacy that Gunther is and that he has built, I mean, that's the perfect choice. I think with Ray, the obvious choice would be Dominic, to have Dom be the one.
Yeah, I heard Dom talk about that. He was asked about that. I got that.
But I do think like Gunther has the ability and the chance to be the new legend killer, to be the new guy that,
right.
And I said on the podcast a couple days ago, he's the guy now that when his music hits, the fun is over. Like, we're not having fun anymore. Gunther's coming out. It's not going to be a good time for anybody. He's going to go through and wreck somebody. And that's what I feel like WWE has missed since Brock Lesnar really coming in. They haven't been able to build up somebody to that level. And I think they've really laid the foundation with Gunther to be able to do that.
And you guys feel he's the right guy, because I had my guest on earlier this past week in Chubby Dudley, obviously Dudley, and ECW original, a guy that was in the first match in ECW history, and he didn't think it was the right situation. He didn't think that Gunther was that guy to be the person to end Cena's career. But so now that we've had time, do you think Gunther was the right person in getting a tournament to decide who's Cena's final opponent? That was the right approach in where we went?
I think we could sit here and make the case for a lot of other guys. I said on the podcast that I would rather it have been LA Knight than Gunther.
I heard you talk about that a couple of weeks ago.
Because I felt like the matchup between Cena, it would have been, yes, you would have split the crowd, but I don't want to say LA Knight needed it more than Gunther, but we all have said, if not now, then when for LA Knight.
Yeah.
Gunther had a world title reign, an intercontinental title reign, retired Goldberg. He's got some things in the chamber. LA Knight
longest intercontinental champion in history.
Exactly. Yeah. LA Knight really doesn't have anything. So, Andy, I also preached that I thought Roman Reigns would be a great last opponent for Cena. It's all about pushing. It's all about pushing.
Well, that's the thing, right? Some people wanted, had fantasized about Edge, but Edge, we know his situations, out there. David Otunga talked about, he had his own crazy idea, which I'm sure, people talked about. But yeah, I mean, a tournament getting to this point, but then you had Gunther, but do you think then this was organic in how it happened? Because Gunther, everybody talked about with his match with Goldberg, but they talked about it differently than what we saw with Cena. So do you feel that this was the plan all along after Gunther retired Goldberg, that we're gonna go right to the next one would be John Cena?
I mean, Andy, I can't think of another scenario. I mean, at least for me, for sure, when the tournament bracket was released, it was okay. Gunther's winning this thing. Like there's nobody else. I think that was probably the plan. I don't know for sure though.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp of, I think the two names that we threw around before the names were revealed were Gunther and Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, I heard
Those are
you
the two
talk about that
guys-
on the show. Yeah.
Those are the two guys that, who needs a big win right now? Well, Drew needs a big win, but I think for Gunther, yes, he had the longest reigning Intercontinental Championship reign, whatever. That's a record that can be broken and probably will be broken someday. But nobody can take away the fact that he retired Goldberg and John Cena in the same year.
And I think it's
because of
even
that-
within a span of 6 months. I said it when Chubby
Yeah.
Dudley was here. Think about that, right? It's not just a year. The Undertaker streak was year after year. Randy Orton, the
Yeah.
Legend Killer, we waited for moments and, he would put people on the shelf. But this is done in not even 6 months.
Yeah, and I think that's such a way to. He felt like a big deal. Gunther did going into it. It's pushed him up even more into a status that it's hard to not have him in the conversation with guys like Cody and Roman now because of the success that he has had within the last year and a half, 2 years since being on the main roster.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
This is not a knock. I'm not firing shots at AEW when I say this, but I am going to say that it just proves that old school wrestling can work in today's wrestling landscape. People truly get behind Gunther, and he doesn't flip flop and fly and do all this stuff. Again, I'm not taking shots at AEW. I just know how wrestling has evolved.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I had Sick Boy on Friday, and Sick Boy was talking about that, how in AEW, he said the same thing you said. That what he sees is that in AEW, everybody's trying to go for the big spot. They got to go show the big move and get everything in there, but maybe that doesn't always work, and Gunther is kind of a throwback. He's a throwback to a different generation, and obviously it's all, seen into what his success has been, like you said, within a few years. I want to say hello to some people. I want to certainly do that first in a minute. Zilla's here. Thank you, Zilla, for being here. And if you are here right now, hit the sub button for the guys. Like I said, they're inching closely, ever so closely to those big numbers, those milestones. Some of us here in the chat have those big gaudy stats. So spare a sub or two and give the guys that. They've been working hard, and they've been here for 4.5 years on Sportswire. Also want to say hello to the high authority, Mr. Hubie Jenkins. The guys had a highly successful show. We're going to talk about that 2 weeks from Saturday. We're going to talk about Ashton Day, who held in his hands the NWA Championship. We're going to talk about Kenny Ice Collins, my friend Johnny Velocity. We're going to talk about even the Cleveland Wrecking Crew and a bunch of others. So hit the sub button there for the Squared Circle shows. Also, hello to Nickelodeon fan. Thank you for being here. Skulls, the Soul Hunter. Skulls, his year is complete in wrestling, and he refereed a lot of matches. Great things. Congrats to the Dawn of Combat, AJ Harrison. He just hit 4,000 subs. He should give you guys like 3,600 of his subs, but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, but he is here. Thank you, AJ. And he'll be a topic on Friday's show when Dario Divine comes here. City Kitty, who is always in your chats. Thank you, City Kitty, for being here with us. And hit the sub button for us if you like. And also, hello to my friend, the legendary Nemesis James Taylor, who is taking a little bit of a seat back in the wrestling world in ring, but I'm sure has a few things to say about what's going on in the professional wrestling ring. And yes, hello to everybody here. So you guys, by and large, were all right with it. Some people had their opinions. People have said this to that, but I tend to think they're just, WWE haters. But then going forward, will we see John Cena again show up? And my next question is, will he be inducted into the 2026 WWE Hall of Fame?
I think he's a lock for 2026. I don't see why you would not just go ahead and put him in. I think we'll see him. Somebody brought this up, and I don't remember if it was on Busted Open or where I heard it.
Okay.
But somebody brought up the fact that they could use John Cena as motivation for Cody Rhodes if he goes down this rabbit hole of losing where he came from and he's all disheveled because Cena's retired and his hero is gone. He's questioning everything. And you could use John Cena as just a one-time, hey, give him a pep talk, go get your championship back, however all that works out. So I do think you'll see him on screen from time to time. He's already been very public by saying he's signed a 5-year deal as an ambassador. So we'll see him in what capacity. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think,
I think it's a lock for him to be in the Hall of Fame, whether this year or next year. Again, with it being next year in Saudi Arabia, maybe they are going to push that to be the big headliner, but I feel like that would be a kind of a slap in the face to us fans who aren't able to actually be there and, and see that.
With as many problems as they've had trying to get Batista inducted, just push him to 27. It'll be fine.
Yeah, push him to 27 or 28. But I think it's absolutely a lock for him to be inducted this year. I mean, the only name we've got so far is Stephanie, and I doubt she would be the headliner for the.
Yeah, I don't think Stephanie McMahon is going to be the headliner.
Yeah, so I think Cena's the perfect choice for it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think obviously everything he's done, capitalize on that. You know, you brought up the whole thing with Cody and where we go from there. I think that would make sense. Batista, maybe it's something on his end as to why he doesn't want to go in right away. I mean, you know, I don't know. Do you, I guess then, you know, before I transition in a minute, and I want to get to the reason why we're here tonight. Any other names? I know it's a little early to speculate. Any other names you think will get? You know, obviously Lex Luger. Everybody talked about Lex Luger. Every year I've done this. It was Lex Luger, and now he finally got inducted, so he's off the table. So I mean, you know, any names you speculate that will go in?
I've got one, and they just signed a Legends deal with the company. If Demolition does not go into the Hall of Fame in 2026, I'm going to be upset. I don't know how long their Legends deal is, but you have got to put Axe, Smash, and Crush into the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest WWF tag teams of all time.
Well, I don't think they're going to put Crush in with them. I think Axe and Smash. I think to put Crush in there because Crush came in at the end, but I think Axe and Smash didn't they have the longest tag team title reign for quite a while? Right? Didn't Demolition have it, right? And then was it the New Day? New Day broke it, right? So I mean, you know, yeah, but they were involved in the concussion lawsuit, right? They were involved in that. That definitely handicaps. Yeah, Demolition's a good one. Demolition definitely, you know, you think about that period of time in the late 80s, they would definitely be good candidates to be in the Hall of Fame. I would think that they definitely be right up there. Yeah, that's a good group. That's a good one. Okay, well, we'll have to see. And obviously, AJ Harrison, the Dawn of Combat, wants to throw in, well, Bray Wyatt. That's another name.
Yes.
That's another name.
Yeah, that's one I would be pushing for.
And Andy, you talked about headliners a minute ago. Like, that's a headliner. Like, if it's not this year, you can headline with Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would throw in one name that I interviewed recently, but I have a feeling he's definitely on some do not call list, and that'd be Raven.
Yes.
Well, I think Raven would obviously be one that would to me be a definite WWE Hall of Fame candidate because we're counting ECW as a part of that. But I have a feeling, and Raven kind of said it himself, he's not holding his breath. So I mean, he would be a name that I would certainly throw out there. And Skulls wanted to say, I would use Cena as a coach for LFG. Well, they changed The Undertaker and Michelle McCool. I saw that they were taken off the coaching list. So I mean, I don't think Cena's going that route. I think you said Cena being an ambassador. I don't quite see him being like a Shawn Michaels where he's involved on every show or getting involved with NXT. But yeah, I could see him show up, maybe be a special host of WrestleMania, or maybe, you know, in a segment or two. I think that would make sense. I mean, I think Cena also, you know, wants to do movies. And then, you know, I guess then I want to make sure I get this right. You guys don't think there's any possibility, you know where I'm going with this, that Cena's going to come back one more time?
I think if there's one guy that is not going to come back, it's going to be John Cena. As much as we've heard him preach it, I really am going to take him at his word. I do not think he's going to come back.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see him in a match. I think he might get physical from time to time, like hit an AA out of nowhere, or
Okay, yeah,
whatever.
that would make
I,
sense. Yeah, that would
I
make
don't
sense.
think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna wrestle ever again.
And I got to throw in the Hardys would be interesting picks because Rey Mysterio is in the Hall of Fame and still competing, and we
Yeah.
know the Hardys with the TNA WWE relationship. I think the Hardys would be an interesting name or team to throw out there for the Hall of Fame, but I don't know, if WWE is saving for that. And Batista, yeah, I don't know what the Batista hangup is, but yeah, I don't think Cena and Batista should go in the same class. I think it should be two sets of classes there. And if you are here, by the way, I do want to point out before I make a transition, hit the sub button for the Squared Circle Radio guys. The guys do a great job. They talk more about the WWE. They talk more about AEW. They talk about current events here a lot more than we do because obviously some of us here in the chat know we talk mostly the local things, the things like in the backyard, the underground wrestling circuit, the promo wrestling circuit, the independents, and then when we get the WWE name. So if you like their coverage, their perspective on things, I would highly recommend them. I've been playing the guys on Sportswire Radio, which you can see right on that little ticker there via the listen live button. And if anybody else has a podcast and they want their podcast to be played, we do that free of charge. It's free of charge. You can have your voice heard out there, and shows like the Squared Circle Radio Show, you can do that there. Shows like the Sit Down Marks, A Work in Progress, some of the other great wrestling content, Wrestling with the Truth, Grappling with Canada. We have a bunch of these shows also via the listen live button. All right. I'll take this off the screen. Maybe I'll come back to some current events. But really, the reason, fellas, that I'm here tonight is to celebrate you guys, but to honor a man that certainly meant, as I said at the very beginning, so much, not just to us, not just to the wrestling community, but to everyone at large, and Jared Justice. And, as we think about him and his memory. Chris, I know your relationship with him goes back since kindergarten. I mean, he was, as you would say, your brother from another mother. And literally that was, and I have some photos I want to share on my screen just to show the kind of man that he was. And I know that really, knowing Jared, he really didn't want that mask on. So, I mean, I could certainly understand that. Yeah, well, I can blow his It's okay. Trust me. I mean, I'm in New York City and I went through that. I'll never forget there was something I had to do it. And my mother wanted me to wear a mask and I wouldn't do it. And it was like, I had one of those pullover things, but we're not going to talk about that anymore. But obviously, Jared and you, Chris, I mean, he really was your brother from another. I know Tyler Peters also meant a lot to the show, but you and Jared, I mean, I know Andy came on a little bit later on, but he really was one of the reasons you kept this show going.
I mean, he, along with my best friend Jason Bakowitz.
Yes, I remember Jason those early days. Yep,
we started this podcast in 2018, and the whole genesis of Squared Circle Radio was, and it happened in two separate conversations because Jason and Jared didn't know each other. So Jason and I were having one conversation about starting a podcast, and Jared and I were having one conversation about starting a podcast. And I said, let's just put this whole thing together. And 7 years later, here we are. But it stemmed from Conrad Thompson and starting this whole wrestling podcast, this whole creation that he has had with ad-free shows and the Bruce Pritchards and the JRs and the whole 9 yards. We listened to that podcast. And it was when Bruce was not employed by the WWE.
Yes.
And he was telling every story coming and going. And Jared and I said, listen, we don't have the experience or the stories, but we love wrestling and we grew up watching it and we have so many memories. Let's just talk about it. And that's how, at the time, the Music City Mania podcast was born and then transformed into the Pipe Bomb Wrestling podcast and Squared Circle Radio as we know it today. So over 7 years, man, so many evolutions of this show, but you're 100% right, Tom. Jared was such a driving force in continuing this show and making it what it is today.
Yeah, his energy definitely was infectious, and there I is. I had that post, that photo from the wall, and it's Bruce Pritchard and Conrad Thompson, and there you are. And Andy, I know obviously you don't have the same rapport Chris did, certainly, but I mean, I know Jared certainly was quite an impact with you with the show here over these past few years.
Yeah, I mean, I said it, a couple episodes ago.
Yep.
We are very different when it comes to our favorite styles of wrestling.
Oh
Like
yeah.
we were complete opposites in
Yep.
what we enjoyed.
You're the young buck. I mean, you're
Yeah,
the young
exactly.
buck.
And a lot of the show, I mean, when I first came on, a lot of the show was talking about a lot of news stuff that was happening, but we also incorporate a lot of old school stuff because
Yes.
that's what Jared loved to talk about.
Jared was a
old
BS.
wrestling.
He was definitely the Attitude Era. He was
Yeah.
the 80s. Jared was, definitely one of those that was just really about
Oh yeah.
what it was. And there's a lot of people like that, undoubtedly.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and so we were complete opposites on the spectrum when it comes to pro wrestling, but yet we still had the same commonality of loving this business and like loving what pro wrestling is. And even when it is awful, and we've gone through some really bad years of really bad wrestling on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, wrestling is
still what we
definitely
love.
it goes. As one of my former employers has said, when I in politics, I never forget one of the speeches he had was, "We were up, we were down, we were up, we were down." And I feel like wrestling, as a wrestling fan,
Oh, yeah.
whether you've been a wrestling fan since the 80s, whether you've been a wrestling fan since the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era, whether you've been a wrestling fan since the dawn of AEW and everything else with Cody, the Bloodline, wrestling definitely has its ups and downs. It's never the same. It's always, it's just, that's how wrestling's been as long as I can remember.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think that's what we enjoyed is we love talking about good wrestling, but we also really love talking about how bad it was sometimes. Like we found a lot of joy in talking about how bad it was sometimes, just because it's what we love. We love this business. We love professional wrestling. I absolutely love R-Truth, and Jared could not stand him. Didn't think he was funny. Didn't think he should have been on TV. Like Jared.
I
lot of
do remember that.
conversations
Jared
about it.
he was opinionated. There was certain people that he definitely, did not like. I mean, he definitely, and I know the Instagram page isn't updated much, but Jared was definitely colorful. He was definitely a guy that he spoke his mind on certain things that he didn't like. Whereas you were the AEW guy. You were the guy in today, and whereas Jared was not. And I mean, so I know Chris kind of sort of fell in between that, but I mean, yeah, that's he was just opinionated. That's what I remember most about Jared. He would speak his mind. That's how he was. I mean, he would let you know, even off the air. Many times he would message me on Instagram, and he would watch my story, and he would just give me a random message about something. I mean, that's just how Jared was, and we put up, some footage of Jared. I mean, that's, Jared certainly, like I said, was very, very opinionated.
Yeah. That was one thing that Jared did not lack. Was his opinion about anything, and he wasn't afraid to tell you either. He told it like it is, and you weren't going to change his mind. And trust me, there have been plenty of times where he and I have had personal conversations outside of wrestling, and trying to change his mind about things even outside of wrestling was difficult.
Jared was one of those guys that you weren't changing his opinion. And I can connect you to the Don of Combat, AJ Harrison. He might want to come on your podcast, so I'll definitely connect. I'll connect on Instagram. I'll give you his info off. He's actually an interesting guy, and he does have 4,000 subscribers. He has his own channel, so he's got his own feelings on wrestling. So I'll connect you off the air for sure. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously and I think that was what's always to me so fascinating about you guys. You guys will also go to these shows. You guys were on site at Summers. I never forget. I think we did one show here on Sportswire where you guys were on site. You were on site at SummerSlam. And I think we
Vegas.
did
It was the picture you just showed of us with the mask in Vegas.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It was. I remember it. I remember it. I was, during COVID or right around the end of COVID. Well, depending on where you were. Although I'm in New York City, and if they could, I'm in New York City, and not to get political, but if they could keep us still in COVID, some people they would. But not doesn't mean I'm not saying anything political, not political. But that's how some people are right now to this day. But no, I remember
maybe some people needed to still be in COVID protocol. I'm just saying. Tom.
Well, I mean, some people I've had, I get that, but I mean, listen, I mean, I never forget we did shows. And I thought you was so fast, but you guys would be on site at WrestleMania. You guys were on site at SummerSlams. I think you guys even were on site one year at a Royal Rumble and a Survivor Series. You guys, all three of you were out there. You were always almost on site. I think that's what maybe brought you guys together, and I think that's why you guys have stood the test of time and persevered as a show, because you had that experience. And a guy like Jared, even though Jared wasn't weekly like you guys are, but he was there. His presence, I think, played such a huge role in this show continuing, because as we all know, it's very difficult to continue a show and get it on the ground, running. I mean, it's very hard when you see, some people look at these things and the subs and the views and, how many people are here, how many people are there. And, but he was one of those cogs. He was the straw that stirred the drink for you guys to continue to persevere, because you need somebody like that. Because like I said, sometimes if you don't have that person, you don't have that will, that driver, that somebody just, making you want to continue to voice your opinions. And he played such a huge role, I think, in the show, continuing and, ever so slowly inching up those numbers to where we are today.
And I think Andy would certainly agree. He was certainly the straw that stirred the drink that is Squared Circle Radio. That's for sure. With a little splash of extra flavor on top of it. But that's just who he was. And I'll tell you, Tom, like one of the coolest things about going to WrestleMania with Jared, the first time that we went was in 2018 in New Orleans. And it was one of those things where Jared and I, along with Andy as well, we were born in small town Eastern Kentucky. Yeah. And going to a WrestleMania show was out of the realm of possibility for a small Eastern Kentuckian. It just was. Yeah. But when we grew up and we realized, oh, we can buy tickets to that thing just like we can buy tickets to a concert. Oh, wait, we can put gas in our car and just drive, and we can book our, wait a minute, we can do this, So it was one of those things, Tom, where it was, we grew up together. We thought the same way about a lot of things, thought different ways about a lot of things, but we grew up together. And we just kept that bond for so long, up until the day that he died. And it's just one of those things where every time we've done a show since his passing, every time that I've listened to a wrestling podcast since his passing, like I can feel him laughing and having a good time right along with us. And I know Andy, he and I have talked about ways that we can, keep Jared's legacy alive through the show. Yeah. That and the other. But I think Andy feels it too. Like when we do shows, like he's there. He might not physically be here, but he's there.
Well, and I mean, listen, we all love talking about wrestling. I love talking about wrestling with Jared, but I loved watching wrestling with Jared. Yeah. Like he would make so many comments, whether we were at Chris's house watching it or whether we were live at the show, where everybody around us could hear him too, and he didn't care. I'll never forget. There's two memories. I'll never forget the first AEW show that was here in Nashville we went to.
Okay.
He was off the wall from the beginning, and everyone around us was in stitches the entire time. Like in stitches, loving it, everything we did. The second one, I think Jared was here for this one, was at a show at the Nashville Fairgrounds.
Okay, in the Nashville Fairgrounds.
It was supposed to start at like 6, and it didn't really start till like 8:30.
That was my day today on the radio doing news.
Well, and the main event was supposed to be like Jeff Cobb versus Moose, like a pretty big deal.
Yes,
and neither one of them could be at the show.
Oh god.
And so it was just, and it was like they played wrestlers' music for like 10 minutes before they actually would walk out to the ramp. It was probably the worst show we had ever been to in our life. But
Okay.
it's probably my favorite show I've ever been to, just because I sat next to Jared the entire time. And just the commentary we got the entire night was amazing. So I think that's the thing I'm gonna really miss the most is, yeah, I'm gonna miss talking wrestling with Jared, but watching it with him, I mean, it just gave a whole it could have been the most serious moment in the match, in the moment. And we'd be crying, we'd be laughing so hard at something he said about it. And that's what I'm gonna miss the most.
Oh man, you're so right, Andy. You're so right. Oh my gosh.
No, I think that that's what you get, and that's what makes wrestling so great. I'm doing this, for almost 7 years, and we've been fortunate that many heavy hitters have come on here. But the one thing to me that bonds people, and I've had people from all backgrounds, whether it's in the UK, whether it's people in Canada, Australia, whether it's people in Greece. Even I had a Greek wrestler a few years back in the backyard. I mean, we had a wrestler from Portugal a few months ago, a pro wrestler from Portugal, to everybody else out there in the old forms of wrestling that I cover. Is that wrestling brings people together. And Jared, to me, was that example of that. He was the true definition of all wrestling matters, because even though he didn't like something, he loved being a part of it. He was somebody that was no question front and center in what it meant to be a wrestling fan, and everything that he loved about this sport. And I think that that's why I want to share my screen here for a minute. And I want to do the first of a couple of things. So if I could share my screen, because for those that are listening and watching here in prime time on the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the only platform where all music and wrestling matters, Jared Justice's legacy lives on, because he goes in to the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And the guy that was number 174, I want to point this out, and this shows the importance of not only this platform and this newest member of the Hall of Fame. The previous member of the Hall of Fame was the guy, David Bottrell, who produced the two biggest albums of Tool's career, Enigma and Lateralis. Everybody knows those albums. And he was the guy that worked. Oh, everybody remembers WrestleMania, the song Big Time? Well, that was Peter Gabriel. Guess who worked on that record? David Bottrell. David Bottrell was the guy that worked for another band that everybody knows called Rush. Rush is considered to be the pinnacle of trios, and he worked for them. So, and that's even just scratching the surface. And that's the last Sportswire Radio Hall of Famer. He's number 174, and Jared Justice is number 175. That shows you his legacy will certainly live on. And we'll make sure that Jared's family gets this, and we want to congratulate and forever cement the legacy of the one Jared Justice.
It's really funny, Tom. And number one, I know that his family is super proud. I'm super proud. This is awesome. A lot of people that I talked to at Jared's funeral didn't know that he did a podcast. And that goes back to what I was talking to you about, Tom, a couple of weeks ago, about Jared being an introvert. Not a lot of people would expect Jared to be an introvert, but Jared was absolutely an introvert. But when you got in Jared's circle, you were in for life. And not a lot of people knew that he did a podcast, but it was just this extrovert energy side of him that he loved to do so much. Didn't matter if Jared was having a bad day or not. Didn't matter what was going on. When we hit record, Jared was on, and Jared had a blast. And that infectious smile and laugh of his just took over our show. Like Andy said on our tribute show, it didn't matter what the script was for the podcast. It was going out the window when Jared Justice showed up. So I know his family is proud of this accomplishment for him. And Tom, I know that Jared would take this in the highest of honors because of how much he thought of you and thought of Sportswire Radio and the work that you do. So on his behalf, thank you.
No, we want to really thank him. And, I know a lot of people see the heavy hitters on here, but it's people like Jared Justice. It's certainly the Squared Circle Radio that helped us, get there, and we appreciate that, very much. And we want to put Zilla's comments and City Kitty's comments and another Hall of Famer that certainly wants to put some kind words out there, which is the Don of Combat, AJ Harrison, and also a fellow Hall of Famer. And we shouldn't mourn those we lost, but cherish the time we had with them. Yeah, I agree with that. I always try to think of the good. I know in life people look at, well, I wish I would have had more time or whatever, but you just can't predict the future. You can't predict how long we're here. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all mortals, and we have to make the best of it. And I think he was somebody that in his time on this earth, while relatively short, he made a long lasting impact. And I think today, on this date, December 17th, 2025, I think his impact is now permanently cemented by being in this Hall of Fame, which I like to point out humbly that there are many others in the Hall of Fame, like Raven, like Savio Vega, like Mark Farner of Grand Funk Grill. Everybody knows him. And, certainly we mentioned David Bottrell and Sick Boy and, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell. I mean, it's a long list, and certainly AJ Harrison and Zilla's in the Hall of Fame. And I want to, point out that this is definitely a legacy that's, permanently cemented and a man that we're going to think of the good times. And I think that these times that we had with him, whether it was on your show or here on Sportswire through the Listen Live button on sportswireradio.org, this is going to permanently cement that legacy.
Yeah, and I have no other words, man. It's so cool to be able to honor him in this way. It really is, because
yes, absolutely, no, totally.
Again, he would be so proud of this. He would take this as such an incredibly high honor. And again, it's just so cool to be able to put him in this Hall of Fame. So thank you, Tom.
No, absolutely. And I want to say that endorsements on this platform, they're earned. They're not given. There's a famous line about endorsements are earned, not given. And this one is earned. This is proudly earned. It is proudly earned. And, definitely a good man and a friend to our community. And we are honoring him right off the bat. But, fellas, I'm not done, because I got a couple of things here that I want to share my screen, because I know Jared being in the Hall of Fame is obviously a prestigious thing. And we certainly are appreciative of Jared. But I would like to share my screen again, because for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, the Squared Circle Radio, you fellas join the Hall of Fame alongside the late, great Jared Justice.
Well, Andy, I'm going to toss to you first.
Boy, putting Andy on the spot there. You've been doing that for 4 years, Chris. Boy,
yeah. Was
that a rib? Were you trying to rib him here or what?
There'll be a receipt at some point.
Yeah, it better be.
One bed.
Yeah. Listen, this is a huge honor for us. And Chris said it in the beginning, we wouldn't be where we are today without you, without Tom, and without the Sportswire radio community, and listening to our show and being a part of it. And I think of all the people that we have interacted with, like City Kitty and so many others that have been in our comments and have joined us every single week. Chris's dad is a big supporter.
Mr. B, yes. So, by the way, condolences to Mr. B on his Kansas City Chiefs. No one feeling bad for him, though. No one feeling bad. But something tells me that Mr. B will be, I'm sure, attending the wedding between Taylor and Travis. I'm not quite sure.
I think he's the best man. I think that's what I heard, is he's the best man.
Well, you know what? He'll probably be a best man while Travis is no longer on the Chiefs roster, because I think they'll be cutting him after this season.
Probably, but it's such an honor to be able to be in this Hall of Fame and to be with so many other great people on here as well. Yes. And so it's a lot of hard work, but I kind of, like me and Chris have said before, all of this is not the culmination, but really another step forward and the next chapter of what we're doing. And so we're grateful for where we are and for all the people that have gotten us here and helped us here. But we're also excited to see, what this podcast is going to look like 5, 10, 15 years from now. And, keep going forward with it.
See,
yeah, absolutely.
I teed you up so well, and you just did so well, Andy. No, in all seriousness, I hit a crossroads in my life 7 years ago, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I found sportscasting, and my love of professional wrestling and talking about it collided. And to now look 7 years later and to be in a Hall of Fame it's wild. And it means more to me than I could ever express, because like this, while podcasting is fun, like Andy said, it's hard work. And I take it way more seriously than I probably should. But I do, because this is a passion. And this is, if I'm being frank, where I want to put all my eggs in the basket of this podcast, and would love it to grow to your numbers, Tom, or to AJ's numbers, or
we had James Taylor here in the chat who has 40,000 subscribers.
Yeah, the list goes on. The list goes on.
Yeah.
But I also know that where we're at 360 subscribers, unless somebody's hit that sub button while we're on the air.
I have people here in the chat. Can they go hit a sub for the guys? I'll check when we're off the air, but I got Zilla here. I got AJ Harrison. I got other people. Give the guys a sub for
we appreciate that. But whether we're at 40,000 or whether we're at 360, I was told the other day that if you're growing at all, you're doing something right. So in a world of wrestling media dominated by podcasts, we're just trying to find our foothold, and we could not find that foothold without Tom Bryce and without Sportswire Radio. This show has reached so many more people than we could ever count or ever imagine, thanks to Sportswire Radio. So I will forever be grateful for Tyler Peters putting.
Yes, Tyler messaged me, by the way. Tyler wanted to give his congratulations to you guys. Tyler actually messaged on Facebook. He had wanted to put it in because he didn't have a chance to type it in the chat. So he did want to congratulate you guys. And Tyler, you're speaking as podcasters. I mean, you and him have history because you guys called the CCW show all those years ago with Nelio when Nelio worked with you guys.
Yes, yeah, we did. We've done some commentary together, and Tyler's the one that put Tom and I together, and
yes,
the rest is history. As
with the Rewind Wrestling podcast, which was way back in the time machine, literally. Yeah, that was the days of COVID. Yeah, that was the days of COVID. But yeah, hit the sub. But I do want to say hello to somebody that was here yesterday, is in the Hall of Fame, wrestling star, the USWA Universal Champion, my Samoan King, Daniel Tafua. Even though my day certainly needed a Tafua chant, it now just got it. But he's at work. Wanted to say hello and rip to Jared. And Zilla sends her thoughts and prayers to him and his family and friends. And no one understands the backstage work that goes into it. It's not easy for sure. Yeah, no, listen, I mean, and I understand it because, I know people see now, people stop me. Oh, you had David Ellison of Megadeth last week. You had Raven, Rhino, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell tomorrow, David Bottrill. I had Josie Scott of Saliva, the wrestling tie, with certainly Chris Jericho and, everybody, the Dudleys. I mean, everybody sees the heavy hitters now, but when I started 7 years ago, it was on a Skype call, and my mother would scream at me all the time, this podcast, and it was she didn't want to live with me. I mean, now it's like, hey, you think David Ellison, I can get like a shout out from him? Like, that's how it is. Like, people, that's what people ask me now. You think I could like get like can you contact them for me? Like, as if it's like we're like best buds and have a beer. I mean, I do a show covering news, and it's practically because of the people I have on here. My co-host Heshi Tesher was like, wow, WWE wrestlers. I mean, so. But it wasn't like that. Even I still have room to grow, but I understand that the blight of being a podcaster and getting to that level, and not everybody gets there. It does take a lot. Not everybody. People look at it and they do their first couple shows and their friends and family. Listen, I never forget doing my first show years ago, almost 7 years ago, and I'm doing it on a Skype call with my friend at the time. I grew up with, and we're going to do an hour, and, I'm holding the microphone. My hands are my hands are sweaty from my palms. And, we're just talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame. And, she was challenging with the audio, but, you go at it, you find your niche, and sometimes you stumble upon it. Sometimes a lot of it's luck and it's effort, but you guys are definitely are going that route. And I think you guys are going to get there. And I'm not done with giving you things, but, before I do anything else, give the guys a sub. I would really appreciate if you could hit a sub button for them. I know that they're putting the work in and they're getting there. So give them a sub. They're on YouTube. They also have their X. They also have a Facebook page. They have an Instagram page. You can check them out. They're the Squared Circle Radio. They are hosted by Andy York, the Young Buck, and also Chris Belcher. And Chris does some work. Don't hold it against him with the Tennessee Titans. He's done some work with them in the past. Don't hold it against him. But maybe they got the number 1 pick this year. Maybe Chris will feel a lot better.
Not right now, New York Giants. Come on now.
That was actually the big topic. It was on the radio today. Was the big topic this morning was will the Giants just beat the Raiders and then maybe they won't get the number 1 pick? Which is very Giants. I think we're talking about the Giants trading down the picks. Maybe you guys will get lucky. But I do want to share my screen.
I want to trade down the pick. I don't want number 1. I want to go back down. Come on.
Well, I think that was what they were talking about here, in New York on the radio. Get all the picks. You got Jackson Dart at quarterback, but I don't know. Listen, I don't know what to say on that. But AJ sub, thank you, AJ. And I do want to share my screen one more time because I know I gave you a couple of other things, but I want to give you something else because it's your day here on Sportswire Radio. So I want to give you a day. I know we've done this before, but I got to do that. I got to go and take care of that. So I'm going to share my screen there once again. So, congratulations, fellas. And, we'll give you that. And you got to have a day, right?
That's right. That's right. 17th, 2025, Squared Circle Radio Day. Andy, I don't know, man. Like this is cool. Like this is like
I'm glad you guys and AJ Harrison and Daniel Tafura feel that way about the Hall of Fame because when I inducted LA Guns frontman Phil Lewis, he kind of was like, I don't know. He just looked at it like, I don't know, like he was aghast at it. I don't know.
No, like some people. Cool. Andy, did you ever think when we started this that we would be in a Hall of Fame somewhere?
Oh no, not at all. I didn't think. To be honest, I wasn't sure if we were going to ever hit 100 listeners for once. But we've come a long way. It's a great honor for us to even be able to be here and to talk about it, and talk about wrestling, and even get just a little recognition for it. And it's one of those things where if we had 1,000 or 1,000,000 people listening or one person listening, we would still be doing this because we enjoy doing it so much and we love doing it. So
yes,
it's really is. It's a great honor.
We prefer the millions.
No, I think you guys
we do.
You might get there. Listen, you never know. I mean, listen, you just might get there. You never know about it. But I think most people, if you love it, you'll do it. I do think that if you love it, you'll do it. And I think many of the wrestlers that are here do that. And I think some of them do extraordinary things. AJ Harrison done some stuff. Tafua obviously he's got a belt and he's moving up the ranks, and I don't know why he still wants a match with Ampo, but different show, different time. But no, I think if you want to do it, you'll do it. And I really believe that you guys will. But I'm not done sharing my screen. I want to put a couple more things up. I know I don't have to. I can, certainly call it a day here, but I'm going to share my screen once again, if I could. And because for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, Chris Belcher, you individually also go into that Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. So there you go. You got also for yourself individually, because obviously as a show, we want to get you guys in there. But, individually, you got to go in the Hall of Fame as well.
Man, that's so cool. That's so cool. Like I'm honestly moved. Like, that's so cool, man. I appreciate it so much. This is, like I said, every Monday night, Andy and I are just cranking it out, whether there's one person listening or there's 100 people listening. But this is cool. This is really, really cool. If we don't grow this podcast any more than what we are, we're still Hall of Famers, and that's freaking awesome. That's awesome.
Well, I mean, obviously there's some other people out there that want to congratulate you. I'm going to let them do that. That is I'm still not done, by the way. The one and only, the good guy, CJ Black, who had one of my most viewed live shows this year, and a man who's certainly done a lot in the underground wrestling and the backyard, the independent and the professional wrestling circuit. Yeah, I'm going to say it. He is the 7-star superstar multi times over. He wanted to say, welcome to the Hall of Fame. And I can't play that song for you for copyright reasons. Just want to point that out. You guys will get to 100,000 subscribers. Thank you to the Don of Combat, AJ Harrison. And it's better than the WWE Hall of Fame. Obviously, somebody's buttering me up here tonight. But I will point out that the WWE Hall of Fame and the Sportswire Hall of Fame do have one thing in common, because Vince McMahon and myself aren't in those Hall of Fames for obvious reasons. I mean, I have to say that, I am certainly Janelle Grant territory with like Vince McMahon, but nevertheless, we thank the Don of Combat for those kind words. And, obviously I'm going to share my screen shortly once again, because, obviously I think you guys are probably sick of it, but I got to do it nevertheless. So let me do that right now. And let me get this right, because for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, we now should have the young buck, Andy York, into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. So yes, if Chris went in and Jared went in, Andy, if I don't put you in there, I'm going to hear it from you, and then you won't come back on the show.
No, it's awesome. I honestly wouldn't be able to do this without Chris and all the hard work that he puts into the show, and everything that he has done for the show. I literally sometimes just show up and get to talk about wrestling, and so that's a big deal, and that's what I enjoy doing. So this is a great honor. I'm so happy to be able to be in here, to be in with Jared, to be in with Chris. I never would have thought, the first time Chris asked me to do this, and then it kind of kept reoccurring, that I would be sitting here, in a Hall of Fame one day. So I'm very, very grateful to Chris for even giving me the opportunity to be on the show. And then I'm very grateful to you, Tom, for inducting us.
No, you guys definitely deserve it. I always liked listening to the show. I always liked, I see some of the wrestlers here like Tafua and CJ Black and, even AJ Harrison. I always liked listening to you guys in the background, whether I'm doing something. And I always enjoyed the content that you guys provided, because it was always quality content. And sometimes, as CJ would know, one wrestler he particularly had in his company, there is an expression, quality over quantity, and you guys definitely put that out there, and you can certainly hit the sub button for the guys and help them get out there, and we appreciate them very much. And yes, as a show, and congrats individuals. We'll connect you guys to AJ, because AJ has an interesting story out there. He has some opinions on wrestling, and maybe you guys need some more guests. I mean, I know you guys had Brian Saxton once upon a time, but maybe it's time to get some other guests, and we can certainly help opportunities out there in sports. Where I see the good guy here, and I see Mr. Tafua. So if you guys want some more guests, I can certainly help that out. In the meantime, I may have to certainly take this off my screen and give you guys these things. So I'm going to take them all off now. There you go. But we appreciate that. And if you are here, hit the sub button for the guys. And so, before I let you guys go, and obviously, don't cry, going forward, but what are some other things real quick that you guys are paying attention to in WWE and AEW that I should know about?
Oh man. I'm really excited. I know the Royal Rumble is in Saudi Arabia, and I know that we, specifically Andy, likes to throw shade at Saudi Arabia shows.
Well, a lot of people have, though, understandably so. I mean, I can't,
Understandably so.
I'm not going to believe that.
I'm anxious to see what they're going to do with the Royal Rumble. I'm anxious to see if it's handled differently. Obviously, we'll probably have a few more surprise legends, but I'm just anxious to see what 2026 is going to bring for the WWE. I know that 2024 was huge. 2025, maybe it took a bit of a step back. Do they rebound going back to Vegas for WrestleMania a second year in a row? Do they make good on a main event that they seemingly dropped the ball on last year? Depending on how you interpret that. I don't know. I'll be anxious to see how 2026, at least the first half of 2026 starts for the WWE.
And before Andy comes in, I want to say hello to my Hall of Fame monitor. Yes, we have a Hall of Fame monitor here on Sportswire Radio. He is actually in the Hall of Fame more than anybody else. Yes, he is in the Hall of Fame more than 10 times and for really good reasons. And, he is Justin Parsley, the sleaze himself, the circle of jerk. And there's certainly nobody like Justin Parsley on my platform that's ever come here. And he is definitely a lightning rod and, for really good reasons. And he is one of my all-time favorites, obviously, because he's my Hall of Fame monitor, but he did want to say congratulations and welcome in his own way. And he will be, I am sure, inching closely to a return to Sportswire that some people may want to say that they will tune in and get the popcorn ready with your preferred beverage. But Mr. Parsley wanted to congratulate you guys. For you, Andy, anything else I should know about in WWE land or in the professional wrestling world?
I mean, for me, obviously World's End, AEW's next pay-per-view is coming up December 27th, which is my birthday. So you can probably
happy birthday. I can't put you in the Hall of Fame for your birthday. I just inducted you here and the show. So you might be pushing your luck here a little bit.
Yeah. But World's End, I mean, the main event of that show is a fatal four-way for the AEW World title with Samoa Joe versus Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve versus MJF. So like it's like a concoction of everything that everybody loves about AEW. And so I think it's going to be an absolutely amazing match, an amazing night. One thing about AEW that we've talked about, it's fallen off a little bit over the last couple years, but when it comes to their pay-per-views, they 9 times out of 10 will deliver at least a match of the year contender on their show. And so if you add those 4 guys together, especially with the work that Hangman Page has done this year, I think it's, I think for a lot of people, including myself, he may be the male wrestler of the year just for the work that he has put in this year. Having him and Samoa Joe and
I was
MJF
watching
and Swerve
Instagram,
has been
some of the
wild.
stuff with Samoa Joe and Eddie Kingston. I was like, I was really impressed.
Yeah. So it's a different side of Samoa Joe. If you're used to the WWE version of Samoa Joe, they're completely different.
That was like the watered down version of Samoa Joe, though. Come on, now that wasn't the Ring of Honor Samoa Joe. Even the TNA. I mean, with the stuff with Kurt Angle all those years ago and AJ Styles, that's WWE for you. With the watered down versions.
Yeah, but it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be a great night of wrestling with a fantastic main event.
Yeah, I agree with that. No, the Dawn of Combat wanted to say, if WWE and AEW could put their personal differences aside and open the forbidden door, that is something to be a huge moneymaker. Maybe even add TNA. Well, we know TNA and WWE have that relationship, and we know in the past TNA and AEW had that. Remember, way back during COVID, we had the TNA and AEW run. Yeah, I agree. Listen, I'm always about the forbidden door being open, and I think that there should be everybody having opportunities, but I just don't think WWE is working with AEW. I just don't think about that. I'll ask you guys one more question, And I think I heard somebody mention Chris Jericho earlier. Are we seeing Chris Jericho in WWE, or is that just a figment of social media's imagination?
I think we have to at this point. I just he has to come back to WWE to finish his career. I truly think so. I don't want to put a blanket all over all of those guys who went from WWE to AEW, but I do think the majority of them will find their way back, maybe not out of dissatisfaction or whatever. I just feel like it just seems like most everybody makes that full circle and comes back. And I think he's no exception, especially being the first ballot Hall of Famer that he is. I know that he and Triple H had quite the history between each other. So I don't exactly know how that's going to go yet, but I think.
I mean, listen, there's a lot of guys that have had interesting histories in WWE. I mean, when he was alive, I mean, we know Hogan bounced back and forth several times, and then there's that guy named Bret Hart who has said, I mean, countless amounts of things, and he eventually did come back to WWE. I mean, maybe at this point they may take him out of the Hall of Fame. I have no idea, but I mean, listen, everybody comes back. Kurt Angle was gone, for a bunch of years, and they brought him into the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, if it matters to some guys, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Jericho, I guess it would make sense. Everybody obviously talks about Edge, will Edge, circle his way around. But I think a lot of those guys who made the jump to AEW, I think, which, I'm not going to get into it much, but they just didn't do as much as they should have after the debut appearance. Sick Boy and I were talking about this, the WCW legend who actually was in WWE, and you never saw him on TV, but he was there, and we were talking about that. All the guys that would make the jump that first week or two, and then they would wither. I mean, I know Mercedes Moné has got belts and won a bunch of belts, but it doesn't. They would come in. I mean, maybe Bryan Danielson might be the exception. I think that made the jump to AEW, and I think he did have, success relatively speaking. Moxley maybe, but a lot of them else, it was, a week or two, and then, that was it.
Yeah, yeah. I think the outliers for that is Moxley, Jericho, and Bryan Danielson.
Well, Jericho is Jericho. I think Jericho,
But I think Adam Cole would have been part of that conversation if injuries didn't play.
Yeah, I think it's a good one.
I think he'd have been another one that, we all were excited to see him on the main roster with Triple H, but then he had like one of the greatest debuts in AEW history the night him and Bryan Danielson both debuted the same night.
Yeah.
So I think those four guys are probably in a league of their own. Edge is Edge. Like it's hard to tamper down him if he's on your roster. He's going to get his
I think that's a fair statement. I think that's a fair statement. I think that Jericho is different. First of all, he's Jericho. And I think also him debuting with the company when it began, I think puts him in a different category than anybody else that's made the jump from WWE to AEW, because he was there from the beginning. So it's you almost have to keep him in a completely separate category. But yeah, I agree. Let me get to some more comments on the Dawn of Combat before we move on. Royal Rumble, if not, then it would be another big time pay-per-view. Yeah, I think that it's got to be a big pay-per-view. It's got to be a big moment with Jericho. It's got to be a big appearance. And do they bring Jericho back and have Gunther retire Jericho? With the current direction they're pushing Gunther, that's a definite possibility. Yeah, I mean, it's another one. That's a fair point. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, but Jericho's Jericho.
If it's not Gunther, it needs to be Kevin Owens and bring that full circle again.
Yeah, I think there's some loose ends there. I think it would make sense. I think that would make sense. I mean, I don't know. I think it would be very fascinating to see what you do with Jericho if he shows up.
That's what I was getting ready to say. That's the interesting part about Jericho is he's always said he's always going to reinvent himself. Every time he reappears, something is going to be new. So what are they going to do now that is new, that we can sink our teeth into, that we're excited about, and that is the pressure of a John Cena retirement tour? Now we're going to follow that up with a Chris Jericho retirement tour. What are you going to do?
But that's if Jericho even wants to do a retirement tour. He's Jericho. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know if that's something, he wants to do. And I mean, he's in his own lane. He's his own entity. So, I mean, that's and
For sure.
an open question. And also, what will you get from him? I mean, is he going to wrestle as much as even a CM Punk? I mean, Jericho still is, he's 55. I mean, 55 is 55. Cena's about 8 or 9 years younger. So, all right, you did the way you did it with Cena. That makes sense. But Jericho, I know the schedules are way different than they were even, back even 10 years ago, but you still are you going to appear every week on Raw? Are you going to appear every week on SmackDown? Are you going to do all those matches? AEW doesn't really have that. So I think that's another question there with Jericho that, he's 55. I mean, how many 50-plus-year-olds, are going to do those things? I don't know. I mean, I think that's a good point. We'll have to talk about it again another time. But I think also, like you guys said at the very beginning, is that we're seeing a generation of wrestlers, their careers are about to sunset. I mean, Edge is, was retired and his eventual expiration date will come up. We saw Cena. Orton's coming up, I would imagine, in a few years, but who knows? And AJ Styles is definitely right there. We saw Goldberg, who retired. And I mean, you mentioned Lesnar. I mean, you got Jericho out there, Christian. Brian Danielson says he's done. He says he's done. I mean, you've got the Hardys. I mean, you got to wonder how much longer the Hardys are. The Dudleys have now said they're done. Well, they were done, kind of, but so they say they're done. So, I don't know what's left, but we'll have to find out. But yes, before we sign off, we want to congratulate the Squared Circle Radio guys on getting into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. We also gave them a day. We also put Chris in the Hall of Fame. We also put Andy in the Hall of Fame. And most importantly, we put in the late, great Jared Justice individually into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And we'll make sure the guys get all of these things here after we sign off. And I want to pass the baton to you guys here and get to some closing thoughts. I'm going to go with you, the young buck Andy, first, and we're going to certainly see you guys back on here in the near and distant future. But until then, I want to pass the baton to you, Andy, and anything else you want to plug, Sarah, say, the floor is yours.
Just again, it's a great honor that we have gotten inducted into the Hall of Fame here, and we can't express our gratitude enough to Sportswire Radio and to you, Tom, for all that you've done for us, for playing our show all the time, for just all the things that you've done for us and helping us establish ourselves in a lot of ways. And so it's a great honor. It's something that we do not take lightly, and it's something that we really will cherish forever. So just once again, just wanted to say thank you so much.
Oh, you deserve it. No, you deserve it. And I do want to put up also, before we sign off, the guys' social medias. They're on X, more or less. I mean, Facebook, yeah, I could put Facebook up, but unfortunately, Facebook, fellas, I'm locked out on my laptop, on my phone. And I get this question all the time. One of my friends, Anthony Finkel, who's in a band, goes, "Oh, you ever going back on Facebook?" I said, "No." So you have to. I got 1,700. And why would I go back on Facebook? I have 1,700 subscribers. I mean, I get paid on. Yes, admittedly I get a little bit of money on Facebook, but YouTube, I'm on YouTube at this point. I actually. When I speak to people, they say, "What's your YouTube?" And I show, so people are more impressed with YouTube. But Andy's got an X. Go out there, it marks the spot. Check out his comment, check out his post, and if you're on X, give him a follow. But Chris, I want to pass the baton to you before I get to the Dawn of Combat, AJ Harrison's last question. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say, my friend? The floor is yours, and fire away.
Man, Squared Circle Radio is live every Monday night after Raw. And if you're not locked into the YouTube channel and this hasn't sold you on it, you might not get sold, but just give it a shot. Give it a shot. Come hang out with us. It's a lot of fun. Andy has been, I call him my tag team partner all the time. And there's a reason he's called the Young Buck. It's not because he's young. It's because he's my tag team partner. And it's so much fun doing this show. I text him, I feel like every Tuesday and like, man, that show was so good. Man, that show was so good. I even texted him yesterday. I said, that show was not entertaining at all, but it was informative and it was really good. So we may think it's good and you all may think it sucks, but regardless, Andy's my tag team partner and I couldn't do it without his help. But to be able to have my name alongside Jared's name and in a Hall of Fame, for a podcast that we started just because we wanted to is cool. It's so awesome. I'm so blown away. I met Jared when I was 5 years old, and here I am about to turn 37, and we're in a Hall of Fame together, and could have never imagined it. I would be remiss if I know this is cheesy, I know this is corny, but I would be remiss if I didn't thank my wife, my kids, and my parents for
Oh,
putting
you
up
better thank your wife
with-
because she
with
let you do
this
this podcast, man.
crazy
You know,
wrestling nonsense that I have put them
both your
through
wives. You know, both
37
your
years.
wives.
For 37 years, I put them all through wrestling crazy nonsense. So shout out to my wife and to my kids and to my family, because of course, without them, I wouldn't be able to do any of this. But again, man, like Andy said, this is not something we take lightly. We need to get t-shirts made. We need to get the whole 9 yards. Let's go. Because Tom,
Boy, you're
like, I'm not sure what the rest of your Hall of Fame inductees do. But we are
well,
going
some of them. I mean, some of the guys. I think AJ might have hung up his. I know CJ Black did. I know Johnny Velocity did. Sean Jovi did. My hall monitor, Justin Parsley. I mean,
listen.
he's used them in storylines. So yeah, some guys hang them up on their walls. I have Van Hansen is hung his up on the wall. I mean, so some guys hang them up. They get like a one of those things you hold the certificates up. So I mean, that's what most of them do.
I can guarantee you this will be celebrated on Squared Circle Radio in a very, very big way, because like Andy said, we do not take this lightly.
No, I don't appreciate that. Now, listen, and obviously, I am a lord. I am a reverend and a lord. Yes, I actually am a lord, but people ask me that now. But no, it's great. And you have to definitely shout out your better halves, because obviously they allow you to do this show. I have a background in politics, and one of the things, and I don't want to say, one of my friends who was a failed candidate multiple times over, and I'll make you laugh because I know he's not going to listen. I won't say his name, but he knows who it is. After he had lost an election because he didn't win, well, his wife divorced him. So, I mean, you want to make sure you keep the wives happy for you guys. And obviously the podcast is, you guys have won, you're in the Hall of Fame, so you don't have that problem. Unfortunately, we had lost the election, not my fault, but it's just how the ball bounces. But, I've seen that in the political world, but no. And, you guys, your better halves obviously allow you to do this and give you the permission to, do this. Years ago when I was doing this, at the very beginning, my brother did a podcast or two with me, and it's on my other channel, which I don't use much, but I put it out there. The Ring Fever, hit the sub button for us if you desire to. And his at the time other half didn't really like him doing anything, and that's why 1 foot out the door. And also before we go, he wanted to say to Dawn of Combat, instead of something new, Jericho should revisit an old gimmick or push to bring a gimmick to WWE that has never been in WWE before, like the Painmaker. That's a good point. I mean, that's an interesting idea. I think those are good things to find out. If you are here one more time, do me a favor, hit the sub button for the guys. I got a bunch of people on YouTube still. There's a handful or half a dozen of you on YouTube. You're here. You can hit a sub for them. I think they got 1 or 2 subs so far. Zilla's here. Somebody else is here. If you've already hit the sub button for them, and everyone counts. And yes, hello to Justin. Yes, hello to Justin Parsley. Yeah, people will want to hear what he has to say. We'll be there to throw down on Monday. Yes, the guys are on after Raw, which is right now 10 o'clock, right until football ends. So it's 10 o'clock after Raw. And you can check them out during the week on sportswire.org. And yes, thank your families. Although for you, Chris, your father likes you listening to you, but your other half may not like listening to you. So
she tolerates it. She tolerates.
Well, see, I don't have those problems. But I also have a big checkbook. So I mean, I can basically buy people off where they have to listen to the show. And
I don't know. Wait. While we're on this topic, Andy,
yes.
I have to ask you. Was it more entertaining to watch wrestling with Jared or watch it with my wife? Because you've done both.
Well, you better be careful on how you answer this.
They are both highly entertaining for very different reasons. I'll just leave it at
That's
that.
probably the best political answer anybody could have made. I think that they have great qualities and strengths, and
They
you know,
do.
you enjoyed watching both of them. That's the moral of the story. But the moral of the story is these guys are the Squared Circle radio show. They are heard via the Listen Live button on sportswire.org. But one more time, they go on usually after every Monday Night Raw during football to after 10. After football ends, it'll be after 11 o'clock. Hit the sub button for them. Check them out. Follow them on Instagram. Follow them on X. They have a Facebook page. Check them out there. And make sure you support them because they cover all things related to WWE, AEW, which admittedly I don't really cover. And most people know that. But my cop-out nowadays is, well, I get the WWE wrestlers on. So why do I have to cover it? They just come on and talk about it with me. So you guys instead can go talk about it because, like I said, I just let you guys handle it. And also, thank you, AJ, for giving the correct answer. And we want to thank AJ because he connected us to Chubby Dudley. Obviously, it was a great honor to have our new friend Chubby Dudley on Sports. Right? Thank you, AJ, for your support, your hard work on that. And one wrong answer could have gotten them canceled. Well, they're not getting canceled, and they can blame it on me. And or as my mom said, if I do, now I bring my guest onto my to her house or whatever. But yeah, I don't think so. Daniel Tafua gave you a sub. Thank you, Daniel Tafua. He may want to come on your show even. So I'll connect you with some of these guys. But fellas, thank you so much. Congratulations. I look forward to seeing you guys back on at some point in 2026. I definitely look forward to playing your show tomorrow. I'll connect you with some of you guys, and congratulations, and God bless the late, great Jared Justice, and we'll see you soon, and happy holidays, and looking forward to watching what you have to say and hearing what you have to say on all the latest happenings here in the world of professional wrestling.
And it'll be right here on Sportswire Radio. You don't have to change that dial.
They don't. It's actually the Listen Live button. But my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice, figuratively and literally, with all music and wrestling matters. If you're here on Sportswire Radio, I'll be here tomorrow night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Spoiler alert, though, I won't be live. I might look like I'm live, but I'll be here with the producer previously of the band Tool and also 3-time Grammy Award winner, Mr. David Bottrill. He's working on a couple of new bands, which you might want to check out, Bastion Rose and Quarters of Change. But in the meantime, we had plenty of change we made here tonight with the newest members of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, individually, the late, great Jared Justice, Chris Belcher, the Young Buck, Andy York, and also the show itself got today and also got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And please follow the guys and check them out on their YouTube channel. But until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, you are on the number one global radio, Sportswire Radio, where all music and wrestling matters. See you tomorrow.